So our first order of business is public comment. We have one member of the public with us, and if you'd like to raise your hand, feel free to speak. That would be fine. You do? Yep. But, okay, we will continue to move on. Review and approval from the minutes from our last meeting, March 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second. Any comments, changes, updates people have? Cannot hear you, Chris.
Oh, how about that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Just to reflect, Jennifer, I mean, I got off the phone. I don't know what time that was. I was stuck in a garage. So if just gonna reflect that I left the call, I think at about 6:15.
Couldn't have been 6:15. We didn't start till 6:30.
7:15 on account of fumes.
So I have 7:23. You'd like me to
Perfect.
change it to 15?
No.
That's perfect.
All right, we won't ask what the fumes were.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
All right, with that, is there any, I'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. We will move forward to the subgroups. Soil testing and wetlands. Doug and Chris?
Okay, soils testing and wetlands, we received the final draft of the scope document for the soils testing. You know, we made some comments and that has been sent back to Jacobson and Associates to incorporate our comments. And, you know, I would expect to hear from them next week and hopefully we can issue that contract next week.
Yeah, I would just bring up two things. One is, everyone needs to understand, this is a preliminary scope of services, is what we're going out for. So it's the stuff that isn't the sexy stuff, but it's the stuff that you need kind of as a floor. And, Bruce has actually just kind of given, the selectmen a heads up that this thing may be coming in the next week or two. If I could say that, Bruce, if not, disregard it.
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. And it was part of when I met with the Board of Selectmen about a month ago, I'd let them know that we were planning to do this. So this is not a surprise and it's going forward very well. Thanks to both Doug and Chris for making that happen. I guess we can leave it there. Well, once we have the final back from Jacobson. Actually, we won't be meeting in 2 weeks because that's when we're gonna have it. Maybe what we can do is, once we have it finalized, we can just distribute it to the community. So
Okay.
people can see what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be, like I said, it's not, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised what it says in there. I mean, it's the technical information that we need. And they were very comfortable with what we presented to them when we met with them. And the draft that came back from them is representative of what we talked about.
I guess the one thing that would be helpful to me, and frankly, I know you sent the work back to them, but I forgot to look specifically. Did we ask them for a timeline for doing the work?
No, I would expect them to do that, but I can just shoot my report.
Yeah, it would be helpful going into the meeting on the 23rd.
The timeline and our cost.
Yeah,
Yes.
timeline for that meeting is probably more important than the cost, but just being able to tell people when we're doing things, it's just sense of momentum now.
Yeah, Doug, I thought it was in your email, but maybe
It was in the original email, it wasn't in the one I just sent.
right. So maybe what you do is just send them a follow-up email and request that they put put those two components in it.
Okay.
That's simple enough. That should be easy.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Bruce.
On the business and property owners, we're gonna be getting to that as we talk about the meeting on the 23rd, so I'll skip over that for right now. And get to the streetscape. We do have a finalized, signed and sent back contract with Jacobson to do the work on the streetscape. It is everything that we talked about here. It is the idea of the separated multi-use path on the north side going all the way down around to 40 Ferry Road, having the, looking at the or integrating a sidewalk on the north side and being able to whether or not that gets fully implemented as part of the first phase of construction, or whether that gets done on a piecemeal basis as various developers or property owners make changes to their property and they put in sidewalk along the way, which is apparently the way in which it's been done a number of different times. They have, as part of this contract, there's a subcontract to a landscaping firm that would be looking at the kinds of trees and landscaping that would be part of that median in between the traveled roadway and the multi-use path, as well as the what we're looking for is some kind of gateway where you turn off of 154 onto one, that there would be something there as well. So, some maybe landscape, maybe not. We'll have to see how that is. So anyway, it's exciting that we are there, and the time frame for that is late May. They expect that they will have the publicly available street counts, traffic counts. So they'll have a good sense as to whether or not the roadway and the multi-use path, as was laid out in the Civic Moxie study, whether that will in fact fit all the way down, and if not, where modifications need to be made, and whether or not the traffic, it will accept the traffic that is planned. DOT will require, before they take a hard look at it, the summer traffic counts and real counts, not estimated counts. So once we have that in hand, they can tweak it over the summer while the summer counts are being made. And then by late summer, September maybe, we would be able to have a more finalized preliminary design for the streetscape based on the data, and be ready to reach out to DOT and others to get their comments. Kim, just so you know, you are not muted. So it's
Sorry
coming.
about that. I will fix it.
Didn't want you to be saying anything that you didn't want to speak. Okay. So that's where that is. Now that it's a signed contract, happy to send it out to the committee so you can take a look at it, but kind of similar to what Doug was just saying about the soils analysis, not a lot of surprises associated with that. Any questions?
Did they include a timeline in the scope document?
No, they did not. It
Okay.
did include the price, but not the timeline. So, but I got the timeline for conversation. So. Okay. Then we will move on. I will share my screen. I had sent out to folks kind of, I think that's, at this point it's 2.0, so it's the second change that I've made to this set of slides. I'm sure there will be a couple more changes before we get to the 23rd, but I wanted to give you all an idea of what it was that I thought we should be discussing and kind of the order in which we should be discussing, and then hear from you about what your ideas are. Although Emily can't make it, she may come in later, but she also gave me some of her comments, which I can incorporate as we go along. So before I get started, are there any kind of general comments that people have that they would like to make about this?
Yeah, I just have a general comment, and I'm not being critical, I'm just, I guess, sharing an experience. So I've done 1,000 presentations to.
Well, you're doing this.
Yeah, big audiences and some very contentious issues. It feels like there's too much information, there's too many slides.
Yeah.
An audience can lock in on one slide and hold you there for 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So I think it represents everything we've done. Like if it was for Carl, it's a good track record of where we've been, but I think we just need to step back and say, all right, what's our key messages for the stakeholder audience? And dial it back a little bit or so.
Okay. That is
I
a
think,
good,
yeah, I think that's a good comment. If you go back to the public hearing on the land swap, Carl, I think whatever, that same thing, he spent $1,000 with just some ideas, and people, latched on those for about a half an hour, talking about how you can't plant that type of grass down there. So I think if we can find ways in here to streamline this and things that are not essential and could in fact, as Doug has said, sidetrack the conversation. Let's edit these things now.
sure. And that dovetails nicely with what one of Emily's comments was, which was, she thought that I ought to have as the first slide kind of what we're doing tonight and what we want from the audience. So be able to just put it out there, saying, you're here because we need your feedback. We are
Objectives.
yeah, we are moving forward, and this whole effort is malleable at this point. As we go forward, it becomes less malleable, so this is the right time to feedback. If you can't give us feedback tonight, you want to go home and think about it, here's the way to do it. Really just impress on the fact that that's what we're looking for. So I think that's, so that comment I'm taking to heart as well, to be able to do something along those lines. Other preliminary thoughts before we get into this?
I don't know if it's worth considering some of the feedback we already know about the pain points for people and thinking specifically of how to maybe address those. I think there is some real fear amongst people out there that they're gonna be pushed out for fancy new ideas, and to what extent we could maybe address that some way might be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be other pain points that, we know that are there, that if there's some way that we can acknowledge them, it might be.
Well, I think along those lines, a positive is that, early in our discussion on streetscape, JT Dunn had talked about 18-wheelers and what the need was for some of the business owners there around the 18-wheelers. So that's been a key point in every discussion that we've had around the streetscape, to make sure that we were taking that into consideration. So I think it's that kind of thing, that if we can say, we heard it, it was part of our planning process, and so if there are other of these pain points that people recognize, let us know, because we can integrate it into our thinking.
Right, I mean, the reality is at this point, as I read through it and I looked through it, I thought there was more information probably than could be absorbed in that amount of time, but also I was thinking, you know, for all the time we've been meeting, we've heard from what, 3 people total?
Hmm.
That are property, 2 besides me, that's property owner maybe? And maybe 1 renter, so I think to point out that that feedback that we got from JT was in fact super helpful. We took it when it was offered, became part of the planning process, like you can't complain down the road if you don't get involved.
Right.
And people have to come and listen and talk and I don't know,
Yeah. Okay. So we move that up front, we do maybe some of the pain points. And another point where slip, that I'm sure we'll come back. Okay, so, in the vein of then getting rid of the extraneous, I would call this slide. I can take 1 second and say, we're only the 8th study in 15 years, so.
Yeah, or, and I'm willing to help Bruce, you know, you could have like a timeline along the bottom and just like little flags, okay, 2012, 14, 16 with the reports. But what I would suggest adding, at the risk of contradicting what I just said, is these all included public outreach meetings. So there were opportunities for a lot of people, for the town to provide input to most of these. And then the reason is, why are we doing this? You know, and I pulled some notes out of one of these reports, Civic Moxie. The corridor is generally seen as underutilized. There's vacant and brownfield properties. That's kind of changed a little bit with the Amtrak work, but that's gonna be done, you know, in a few years. And there's no single identity into the area, so it's just a little bit of background, and we don't have to elaborate on it verbally so much, but maybe put it as a banner on the top or something. But I think it's important that there were public outreach meetings earlier. This is not, we're not starting cold turkey here.
I think that's true, and I think along those same lines, I think it's important to note that we have leaned heavily on these previous reports. You know, for instance, streetscape is coming out of the Civic Moxie work, you know, we're not in a position of having the town pay for a whole new kind of set of alternatives. This is really, we're taking this alternative, and now we're looking to see whether it fits. So there's some value to that.
But I also think there's some value to saying, look, we know there have been a lot of studies done. We think they're really valuable, and they make it so that we don't have to do any more studies, right? Like, we don't have to we've done planning, we've done a lot of the planning, and now we're really at the point where we're looking to implement the planning. We're in the action phase, and we're trying to really run with that action phase. So like, we know that there have been lots of studies done. There is a lot of, we're, like you said, like, we're able, because thanks to all of these studies, we have a lot of information, you know, and there are examples of that, like with the streetscape. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel and go through the whole streetscape process again, like, you know, a lot of that stuff. So we're making it, actually, we're doing the implementation component of these plans. So like, we know there have been a lot of studies, we know there's been a lot of planning done. Everybody might feel a little bit studied out. Hopefully there were several public outreach opportunities. Hopefully, you know, you were aware of them in the past. We wanted to make sure to, you know,
now we're in the action phase and we wanted to reach out to everybody again as we start implementing some of this. So if you feel a little bit like over plan, you know, like there have been lots of plans and you're waiting to see something happen, thanks to all these plans, that's hopefully where we are. Like, because Pete, I think there's sort of a, speaking of pain points, I think one of them is sort of like, you keep inviting us to get involved and talking about what's gonna happen, and we don't see anything happening on the ground.
So it may well be then, I'm thinking about the first slide of, you know, kind of key points we want to make. I think one of the key points is answering the question as to why is this different?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it's sort of like, what's our goal? Like, what's our goal? What's been done already? And what are we, right, what are we trying to do?
Okay. Okay. Chris, I can't, way the screen is set up, I can't see, so if you need to say anything, feel free to just jump in, don't raise your hand or anything. Next one, again, a lot of words on a slide that I could probably just talk through rather than necessarily have a slide. If the goal is to kind of cut down the number of slides and not, have too much focus. What I wanted to do though was I think it's important going back to the why is this different now? And we're in the midst of the action phase, is to give people the idea that, yeah, we did the study, we've gotten recommendations, and based on those recommendations, we are moving forward. And there is in fact forward motion to make something happen. So that's why this slide's there, but again, if people think it's too busy or not a critical piece to what the audience should hear.
Yeah,
No, I think-
I think, go ahead, Chris.
No, what's important there, kind of, which goes back to the previous slide. You know, this is our status update. You know, we had those 2014 to date things happening through the Simeon 2025, and here's where we're at going back to that study, and here's what's underway. We've got the stakeholder involvement. We've got the streetscape, which by that point we're going to be able to you know, in essence, sell. And we're doing the wastewater. By then we should have a contract. So we're on our way with basically the boots on the ground, finally getting this thing implemented. And that's really the story of this meeting on the 23rd, right?
Right, that in the context of, that's why we want your feedback.
Yep. And so if you go back to that previous slide, Bruce, you really need to say the committee was created. The fall of 25, we focus on 3 critical items, and we're beginning to work on. I don't even know if you want to. Well, you know, that's really. I guess we could just have the 3 bullets, right?
Right,
Creation, the focus, and now what's going on. Here's what's next. You then go to the next slide, and we show that we're knocking our way through stakeholder involvement. The streetscape is not in there, but and you know, in the catalytic, but those things are over in the 1 through 10. So we're you know, the rubber has met the road, and we're proceeding.
well, in fact, stakeholder involvement, redesign streetscape, and explore localized wastewater
Yeah,
solutions.
those are our 3 subgroups.
Exactly, and so I think we can talk about them.
So you're gonna take out the lytic project?
Uh,
I mean, we wanna head in that direction, but if I were at the presentation, I'd say, what's the catalytic project?
Well, this goes back to Doug, and the question is, oh yeah, what is it?
I would, if we were able to get that streetscape fully designed and built out, that would be catalytic for the effort. So that's why I said it was
Yeah, I thought the context of a catalytic project was more like a hotel with a restaurant, you know, it's kind of an anchor.
Hmm, okay,
I
So,
think I dropped that bullet out. That's what my suggestion. I hear what you're saying. But we've really undertaken those three things.
yep. Go ahead, Casey.
But I'm not undermining the streetscape, it's just, you know, it's semantics.
This
Tough
is
one.
out of that.
I mean, it could become like a sub note. You know, of the streetscape bullet.
Right, of why are we doing stuff?
But if you have an audience of people, they just wanna hear the big picture, they're not into subnotes and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right,
Can I just back up?
sure,
As a business owner, as a property owner who has not been on any committees before. When I see words like formalized stakeholder involvement and advance a catalytic project. I don't feel. Qualified's not the word, but those are that's the kind of language that makes me feel like, well, I'm just a property owner. You know, can I contribute to this in a way that they're gonna listen? Cause I don't know what a catalytic project is and formalized stakeholder involvement. I mean, it sounds very
Soft.
consultant.
So-
salt ease,
It's consultees and I am a property owner who is worried about the cost of oil, paying my property taxes. Are you gonna take away my front lawn for a sidewalk? I just have to say it out loud like this. I look at this and it's great and I believe in this project, but
I think, do maybe the names of our subgroups, are those more digestible than the terminology? Or is there a way to marry
That's a
the,
good point.
You know what I'm
Done to the
saying?
prior
So, like,
slide.
so like, we call it business and property owner outreach in our subgroups rather than formalized stakeholder involvement.
Hmm.
Streetscape, I mean, that's kind of straightforward, but explore localized wastewater, we call it soils testing and wetlands. Like, is there a way to like marry the terms that we're using that I think are a little more user friendly with what's in there?
Emily's not with us yet, so I will, I'll use Emily's, good idea here, which was. And marry it up with what you just said, Casey, which would be to bring forward those three things. And just put, for instance, let's say, business and property owner outreach. And then what I would do is put in parentheses, two. Which is
Yeah.
a recommend, you know, so the recommendation, second recommendation's over here, but this is the way in which we have it underway.
Or you could just do a little arrow.
Yeah, you could. Or there may be some in this room who could do a little arrow, whether I could do a little arrow is another question.
It's not as hard as you think.
But anyway, so that's, I think you're right, we, in either of those ways to do it, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I said it earlier, but we have these three areas on the prior slide, so if you talk about them on the prior slide, and then you go to this slide. You've probably already said what you wanted to say, you could almost just say on the prior slide. You know,
Three of the.
three critical paths to success, soils analysis underway, communication underway, streetscape improvements.
Yeah, okay, but the only difference in that is I was trying to tie it back to the fact that, you know,
These,
the Camoin study. And so we're implementing the Camoin study. So rather than these are coming out of the blue, these are part of that. So that's what the purpose of that slide is.
it's just the same topics on two slides will trip up the speaker.
Could we maybe, do we need slide 3? Like, is that stuff that could just be said out loud, like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and then just go to, like, while you're on slide 4. Could it just say like, okay, we first met at this time, we're created by the Board of Selectmen, we met at this time, and like, here's what we're doing.
Mhm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
I mean, the committee exists, I don't know if we need to even say created by the board of selectmen. If asked, we could answer that, but.
Well, that may go back to, that was a recommendation from the Camoin stuff, right? So that was like why we were created, was
It
the
was,
first step of implementing the Camoin study.
rather than setting up the development authority that was recommended, this is the. Okay, all
Or
right,
maybe you could have, instead of that other slide, this would be your only slide and you could say. Well, I don't know, like complete and then, say. Which one was that one? Well, I guess it's not technically number one,
right,
so. Don't really say that.
Yeah, we don't wanna get too bogged down with a color chart there, we could get lost on that.
But I think it's helpful too, to see like, here were all the things. But
Right, this is
right.
from the study, we're not gonna go into detail here, but this is what we're working towards.
okay,
Well,
Your point.
underway, that would still
Where's
count as
the-
an underway, number one, because that was one of the reasons this committee was formed.
right, right, and one of our charges is to make a recommendation,
That's a means for that.
right, all right. So I think what I'll do is I will do that. I'll drop 3, put the committee in on number 4 as being one of the things that's underway tied to the first recommendation. Okay, we will continue to move on. See, this is why we're doing this. Now, question is the level of detail we want to get in on each of these. I thought it was important because this is where there's going to be, this is a touch to the business of property owners, we're looking at the soils. We're gonna be, no one's gonna be standing on your land, but we're gonna be understanding better what's there based on all the publicly available information. And at the end of the day, that information will be available to you.
This really is your talking point slide.
Right,
I don't know if they'll
So-
be familiar with the work being done on Main Street.
oh, good point. Okay,
Yeah, maybe that bullet could just be removed, and then the second bullet after that, centralized wastewater system, it might not be one wastewater system for the whole area, it could. I don't know, what neighborhood or shared wastewater system,
right,
plural. In the streetscape scope of work almost completed, maybe streetscape design. Scope of work, cause that sounds like, physical work.
mhm. Yeah, let me just see what.
We're
Right.
deep in the forest.
So it could be, let me offer this as a suggestion. What I did was, this was kind of what I'll call my outline slide of what we're doing, and then go into each one of these in a little more detail. Maybe what I don't really need is the detail slides.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Go the other
that
way.
was it, yeah. Well, I was wondering if like,
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no, if so, okay. So
I just
if we
think
go
less
back-
words per slide are more digestible. That's how I.
So if we go back to this, and we've got the various things that are underway. We don't really need this at this point, because we've already said they're underway. And so then we just say, okay, so what's happening within each of these areas?
Yeah, I think that's good. That slide 5 was like an intro slide, here's what we're gonna talk about,
Right.
but it's redundant.
Right, right. And so then, and the reason why, and I probably, when you have a chance, if you haven't had a chance already, if there are other issues, particularly on something like this, where I felt like I'm probably not, there's other things I should probably say or should be said, I would feel free to send me a note to say, you gotta have this idea, that idea. And then on the streetscape, this was the picture is worth 1,000 words. It would just say, coming from Civic Moxie, here's what it is. So kind of get right off of the words and right into the pictures. we've all seen this. I think people will be very interested in the idea of kind of how it might look and the fact that it does, at least on first blush, it fits, the idea fits. So that's what those three pictures are about.
I think we wanna make sure to mention that it's all occurring in public right of
Yep.
like that front portion isn't a part of somebody else's property, it's already part of their.
However, maybe. people-
Everyone may not know this,
Yeah,
but.
maybe a.
Yeah, and that's the education point.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's, if you look closely on this slide, you could actually see that there are, you know, cause it's just over top of a, satellite picture. And you can see that there's certain part of this that is covering up some of the lawn, yeah, some of the lawn equipment there, and, you know, those kinds of things. So we just need to, people need to be aware of that. Okay, and then I think it's important, particularly given the conversations that we've been having around the zoning amendment. To put it out there that, you know, this is what our, you know, we are in the midst of doing this. We have there's no preconceived notion about it. We're interested, and this really is where we want to have as much public comment as possible. Being able to, you know, these are the zones. Again, Doug, I'll look to you in the sense of if you think that at this point, people have glazed over and tuned out.
Yeah, I think that's too much
Okay.
myself.
But maybe there's a way in which I can talk about.
I believe people are either familiar with zoning or they're not. So if they are,
Right.
they would be interested in that.
Okay,
Yeah, it's almost, you know, with the detail again, we go back to, you're not gonna have that one slide that tells everybody what you're talking about. You're gonna break what you're talking about into those three slides. The second one obviously is the big one with respect to the streetscape. Now we gotta get down to here where we have even less information. And I think providing the previous slide plus drilling down into these actual zoning map, and I think this is where we lose people. I agree. I think we just are more general at this point. And really what we're investigating are the tools that may be available.
yeah,
And that's
Yeah.
what slide 12 is, or whatever, and then you get the hell out of there.
Yeah, slide 12, you know, it talks about special exceptions. I would take that bullet out. Some people might not understand that, but if they do, they know how to use it, or that'll come into play later.
yeah,
I think it's really a goal to develop additional zone. I think that really the goal is to facilitate revitalization versus dictate development. That's goal one. Processing, and then I think number two is getting the proper zoning tools in place to allow property owners to potentially to facilitate the revitalization of their of properties in Mariner's Way. Just very simple, and then just we get out of there because it is too complex.
I kind of think. I still kind of think the last two bullets there though are important.
Mhm.
Like, I think all the bullets on this page are important. Or
Right.
like, I wouldn't take any of them out.
But what I could do, I like the way Chris kind of set up kind of goal one and goal two. So
Yeah.
we could incorporate some of the language that's there already. And then but maintain those last two bullets, because I think that those are important for people to understand. This isn't gonna be a flick of the switch.
Right. I do also think there's something to, I don't know if there's a way to do this, but I think there's, for me, I think there's something nice about having like a visual, which maybe is part of like why, like, I don't know if.
It's to me the
Like,
visual
I
is
agree with what you
overcomplicated,
said.
and it's not what we need
Right,
to
like,
tell
I
our
don't wanna-
audience right now.
Right, like I don't wanna make it more complicated, but I think when people are watching a PowerPoint presentation or like watching a presentation, there's something overwhelming about a lot of words and something more digestible about visuals. So I don't know, I'm just wondering, I agree about like that we don't need to like drill down into like the deeper layers right now for zoning because we don't really know where we are with that yet. But I'm just wondering if there's a visual we could use or
I mean,
include with this slide.
Sometimes, even if you don't need a picture, like, I mean, PowerPoint has this nifty little tool where they have, kind of, AI generated stuff, and you can say, hey, make this,
Or visually.
yeah, and
digestible.
you'd be amazed how different the same words look when like a little, caricature has been added to it,
Yeah, yeah,
and it'll do it for you.
yeah. I also wonder if maybe, Bruce, we could. So like, this is what we would say out loud, like, we wanna facilitate revitalization versus but maybe we don't need all of those words. Like, maybe it can just say facilitate revitalization versus dictate development.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying? And maybe that's just me, like how I am as a learner or like an absorber of information, but.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, like block diagrams or chevrons or timelines. I
Yeah.
mean, those are things that you can put a lot of information on a slide, but simplify the wording and then you just talk to it, and fill in the details. Because people will nod off if it's all words like this and
I
then
mean, you
they'll
could
latch
do
on
this
to something
too.
and say, well, what about this? And then you get bogged down, so
Right.
less is better, it's all in the presentation.
I mean,
Like,
you
yeah,
could
like-
really digest the second one to be like review uses.
Right, and then you
really
can
get
say
these.
out loud, cause you can, but I also don't wanna make you do all this.
I think I'll tell you what really concerns me, and it's easy for you because you did this for a living for many years, but the concept of allowed or allowed by special exception, we're now talking about terms of art. And I just, at this point, when we're talking about this in generality, there's no reason to talk about looking for public comment, talking about special exceptions, talk any of that stuff. So I think we're just talking in the general sense. And again, that part of it where we're at is really in that very general status, that general state. And Jennifer, that night in the public hearing, how people went off and off and off when we were looking at pictures is what it just still comes back to me that from that night. And it's almost like I wanted to kill Carl and burn the damn things.
Well, I had to disagree with you on that actually, Chris, because I
Nope.
think people respond to visuals and it's very hard for some people. I'm actually a very visual person. And part of the reason we did those things is just to be like, this could be what if, just to give people an idea that right now it's a big broken up parking lot, but it could be this. I mean, you guys are gonna shape it, and I understand exactly what you're saying that, then it gives people details that they can pick on, but I do think there are some instances where giving somebody that visual an idea is actually helpful to get you to the next level.
Then
But
then we show them that what that slide is a slide of the area. Because the fact that it's MM1 or it's I or it's elemental P or it's Q, R, D, nobody gives a shit that night. It means it's just an overcomplication. If you want a picture, let's put the picture of the area we're talking about, and that's all we need to do.
Like an aerial.
AA1, AA2, we got A, we got I, we got MI, we got elemental P, we got E. It's not going to mean anything. Nobody's going to get in there and start looking at what B3 is or B4 is. And I think it's going to overcomplicate things.
Yeah,
But just
okay,
put,
a different picture.
You know what I do also like, what you brought up at or maybe Deborah, I don't remember who brought it up,
We look over.
the idea that, the way that things are design down at Saybrook Point with three
Mhm.
distinct things, like that it's possible that in Mariner's Way, there are different areas of the street that lend themselves more to different kinds of development, and that you're open to looking at that too, and making things fit in a way that makes sense. I mean, I think that would maybe make people feel better. I don't know. What do you
Yeah, that's
think?
what's in the civic moxie report.
Yeah,
They have the three areas and then.
I think like if there's a way for us to convey that there is a thoughtful, not one size fits all process, that might be something that people would be interested in knowing too. I mean, ultimately it's zoning's decision, but you know, we're gonna make some recommendations based on our results that we're getting, plus everything that's come before and I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought that was kind of an interesting, like outside the box thought, and that might work for this area. And it might make people feel good to know that that thinking is happening.
Yeah, I'm just looking right now, I think somewhere in the Civic Moxie work, they had a picture of the area. And.
Yeah, they have the three areas.
Right, and the three concepts, so I will,
Yeah, it could be good, it could be too much information.
Yeah.
I like going back to what Casey has been saying, it's to enable, and you too, Bruce, it's to enable developers opportunities. You
And
know,
property owners.
kind of break down, simplify the process for them as, okay, it's okay to build this stuff in these locations.
right, okay,
That's actually a good idea too, to put that if you wanted to make changes, this would make it easier for you. It would make it more
yeah,
cost
exactly.
effective for you.
If they wanna change their
Yes,
business
right.
outside the existing zone.
Yes, it would cost you less and it would be easier for you to accomplish.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you don't have to.
Right,
Yeah, we're looking to make improvements and present opportunities. That's like, those are our
Yes.
two.
Not
We're
dictate.
not trying, right.
okay.
I do
Good.
wonder if that, I know, Chris, I know you don't agree. That third bullet point, the only reason I think that that's important is because I wonder if people will be like, oh, well, like, you're gonna go and change the uses or try to change the uses, and are we gonna have an opportunity to say anything? So I think that's why I thought maybe that was important to at least mention. Maybe it doesn't need to be a bullet point, but maybe it just needs to be said.
well, you
Yeah, it
could
could be
just say this,
simplified opportunity for public comment.
Right.
this is a multi-step process that will have multiple opportunities for comment.
Yeah, again, the key is the goal. The goal isn't to come in and tell you what to do. The goal is to provide you with new tools that would allow you things to do. That's all I'm trying to say. We don't have to say it in 4 bullets. We could say it in 2. That's all.
Yeah.
2.5 then.
Yeah, I got it. All right, so then we dropped 13, we dropped 14, and 15 is something that we've just moved up to the front anyways, and I need to work on that more. But let me just, take a moment to, commend Jennifer, the letter, the snail mail letter is out, correct, Jennifer?
Yep.
Thank you, and we are ready to, we need to think about the email that will be, the invite to this that we'll be sending out. When did we decide, later next week? Did we say?
I don't know if we picked a date, but I was waiting for you to see if you wanted contact information on there,
Yeah.
or if you wanted this flyer to go out, or just the letter, or how exactly you wanted it to work.
Okay, you and I can work on that.
Okay,
So anyway, so there will be an email that goes out reminding people, and then the flyer that Jennifer has put together, which is in front of you tonight. That if people are happy with that, my plan is to, as soon as the weather warms up, which I think is maybe tomorrow, or at least, if not by next week is to, walk the street as it is with a flyer and knock on doors and hand out the flyers and be able to answer any questions that people have, at that point along the way. So. But then that, what we want from them, on the 23rd is, do we have the right way to communicate with you? If email is the right way, you need to give us your email so that we have it. And also kind of reinitiating the concept that we talked about a bit in the Camoin study about maybe the business and property owners would want to have their own group that meets either with or without representation from us, but kind of as this is going forward, have some kind of internal group that's working, that could be shipping us other information, whatever. But it was one of the ideas that Camoin had recommended, so I just thought I would bring it up.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if. If the feedback we get during this meeting is, or you hear that people want to start a group.
Right.
Cause I mean, I'd be thrilled if they just came to the meeting.
Me too.
Like, I think that would be a huge start rather than having a whole separate group, but.
Well,
Yeah.
if they did have a group, maybe they could have one person that comes to the meetings.
Mhm.
And like presents whatever, anything they wanna communicate with us and then presents back.
Yeah, or they could have Tracy be part of the group, and that's Tracy is the representative on this group, so.
Yeah, or is there another opportunity, how can they provide input?
Mhm.
Do they send you an email or do they send it to the town?
But
Yeah.
how do they provide input, but also just, I guess, like, this process has been. Like, I never knew it was so hard to get in touch with people. And like, to really truly have, like. I want people to understand that, like, we actually want to provide you with information, good information. We want to provide you with the opportunity to have input. But it's so hard. I mean, I don't know if you feel this way as economic development, like everybody's so inundated with information. What is the best way to know something's going on?
Right.
This is my life every day.
Yeah.
I do think though that building relationships is the best way to do it, and I think that's what you're trying to do here. Even if not every message gets through, or people don't always wanna spend the time to watch the video after the meeting or whatever. If they know they could pick up the phone if they need to, or send a note, or get their issues heard, I think just building those relationships is a key. You may not get all the interaction all the time that you want, but I think if those bridges are there, then over time, it really goes a long way. That would be my feedback on that.
Yep. Yep.
I have a question. So moving forward, well, it's a question and a suggestion. I sort of have a suggestion that we have a next steps slide.
What to expect.
What we're doing next, yeah. And then along those lines, I'm wondering, do we anticipate, so in terms of thinking about like what we want to hear from them on the 23rd, do we anticipate one or more additional meetings like this further down the road? Like additional with like another input type of meeting or no?
Yes, so what I wrote down is thinking through, some key milestones. So for instance, if Jacobson gets back that kind of first cut by late May, early June, that would be, we would have a meeting specifically on that to get feedback. don't know what the timing will be on the soil stuff, but there will be, as activities take place, there will be milestones along for those activities, which would then be an appropriate time for us to have communication. Now, which communication is best? I happen to think in many of these, it's just gonna be easier for people to come to meetings, but we could have a regular monthly, written update, what's going on in Mariners Way, kind of thing, and then here's the meeting in mid-June that talks about X, and here's the meeting in September that talks about X and Y, or whatever the case may be. But I think you're right, having people walk out of there having an understanding of what's coming down the pike, why we want their input now, and the way in which to offer that input.
Right, because like, sort of back to what Chris was saying, like, we don't need to, we're not in the place of going down, for example, like the zoning rabbit hole right now, but at some point, I'm sure when we're more like hammered down, I assume that's something we'd want to give people an opportunity to comment on, so it's not, so we know sooner rather than later. But like, I don't think that we wanna, on the 23rd, get into like, so what kind of uses, like any of that, like, I think that's premature, but I want them to understand that will happen eventually, but also not to be on, if I know we're doing that in the future, I don't wanna talk about it, I don't think it's time to talk about it on the 23rd.
Right.
And same thing with some of the other things, like some of the other recommendations, we may take up, when these three subgroups are like nailed down, there may be another round of initiatives that we start to take up.
Yeah, so like for that example on the zoning changes, say somebody comes to the meeting in 2 weeks and they've got a zoning change, in hand that they wanna push. We don't really wanna get into it too
Right.
much then, but we
Right.
could say, okay, we'll follow up with you and get it, but it
Right.
just seems like I guess maybe we just need to reiterate if you have input, either keep looking at Jennifer, because she has the old Saybrook,
People can always send.
email address, or they come to this meeting, or they, what is the mechanism for them to give us input? A lot of people don't wanna sit through an hour meeting, and they're not used to,
Right.
listening to, they don't wanna listen to us drone on. They
Hey.
just wanna come in and make their point.
But people, people may come in with like a specific agenda that like something that they are concerned about or
Yeah.
they wanna talk about. So I think that's why it's helpful, like for our discussion topics, if we're very clear about like, here are the things for tonight, and then if somebody starts to bring up something else, we can be like, we reiterate that we really do wanna hear that input, we're not there yet, so that'll come.
Right.
Well, and also, that's not our job. We're not in position to handle their zoning issues. No
Right, but it
problem.
might not
Take,
be a
we-
zoning issue, it might be.
street shade, well, yeah, sure, if that's something we're showing, yeah. No, I'm just, again, we're not there to, streetscape, yeah, absolutely, we'd be glad to talk about it, but, other, if they're drilling down, this is where they need to talk to the town officials, this is not our job.
Right. But also on this final slide, we could, not this final slide, I've got another final slide in mind now that we're talking about it. We could also reiterate when we meet public comment after, during each of those meetings. Or send comments to, we could have Jennifer's email, my email, whatever's the right way to go there and be able to. Get that information that then gets shared by the rest of the community.
So this here, should this be? I know we're gonna remove slides and stuff, but you've got this at the end. I mean, it's gonna be like, oh, dark 30 by the time we get here. Should this just be moved up as the business and property owner outreach? Just get right into it when you talk about it?
It actually is gonna be changed quite a bit. This was in many ways, this was just a placeholder for trying to figure out what I wanted to say, and then.
Okay,
When Emily made the good point about you need to have something like this right at the front to talk, what are you doing? and what do you want to hear from us tonight? All of that. So this slide will be wiped out.
Okay, it'll be
Yeah.
moved up,
Right,
okay.
but there will then be a slide at the end that's kind of a thank you slide. If you have any comments, here's how to comment, or please come to one of our, bi-weekly meetings and, here's the time for doing that.
Are we anticipating or seeking input on the specific things that we'll be going through in the slides, like streetscape, soils testing? Obviously, we are looking for how best to outreach with business and property owners. That's kind of the.
Yeah, I think, any input that they have on those issues that they want to share that night, that's fine. Anything that they want to share after that meeting,
Yeah.
that's fine. But also, these are all, in both cases, this is phase one of those two
Right.
things. And so there will be other, other phases that people can comment on coming down the line.
Right, okay. So this is more informational.
Right. And I would almost call it organizational.
Yeah.
In that regard, I'm trying to say, okay, we've been doing this for a year, we have to bring the champagne, we've been doing this for a year, and we're finally ready to kind of unveil the work that we're about and try to get the input that we need to keep going.
So this meeting's in 2 weeks. I see a heavy duty email volley happening between then and now. Are we gonna meet again before that or?
Now, let me try to incorporate tonight's comments into draft 3.0 and see how well I've done. And if there is a need to have more discussion, we can, always schedule a special meeting if we have to.
Anybody have any changes on this? Or any thoughts of it?
No, I like it. Okay, we've got one more agenda item. And oddly enough, even though it's about zoning and design standards, it is, in my mind, I think, a quick one. My suggestion on this, and I'm gonna look for a response from Casey and maybe Casey and Emily can talk a little bit about this before our next meeting. I have this, that we've done a good job in kind of identifying a lot of potential uses. What I'm struck, and mostly by the fact that I have no idea, which is one of the reasons why it concerns me, is both you and Emily have done work in this area, and both have said uses are important, but they're not really as important as the design standards. I don't know how we build the design standards. I've never done it before, you have, and so I would look to you to say, what would be the right process for this committee to kind of begin to understand well and to make recommendations around design standards? And do we need external help to do that? Or is that something that, you can be our guide, or you and Emily can work together and be our guide? I know I can't be, I don't know anything about it, so.
I mean, this is what I think. I think what would be like procedurally, what I think would make the most sense for us is if we had some, and I did start like poking around a little bit, but I didn't get that far. If we had a sense of, and I know this was done during the Des Moines study, but if we sort of went back to some visuals, like, do we want something that looks like this or something that looks like this? Do we want something that looks like this, something that looks like this? And then that is the foundation for, I mean, depending on kind of what everybody likes. If I were doing this, like my next step would be like to find the zoning reg for that, develop wherever that building, that wherever that development was done, wherever that industrial park or whatever it is, like what that zoning reg says and kind of start from there. And maybe the other thing I would do is to look at it, sort of depending on where we come down in terms of like general concepts for what it looks like. Looking at some other, so, finding some examples and like there are some resources for this, but finding some examples of existing zoning regulations. And then either like, kind of depending on where we are, either go through those and say like, yeah, this is kind of, we like this, we don't like this, we like this, almost a very basic, like bullet pointed. And not to the level of a draft regulation, but like a pre-draft regulation almost of like, here are the design standards we're talking about, and then kind of, then it would evolve into like a draft sort of. So I think we start with visuals and maybe some sample zoning regulations that maybe go with those visuals or don't. And maybe give everybody a chance to absorb those. And then have a conversation of from there.
How does the planning commission? When you guys get a number of projects that you've got to sign off on for zoning. When it comes in and it talks, I mean, do you have a good sense of the difference between what a 100-foot setback and a 50-foot setback? I mean, we're gonna get ourselves into that level of detail. And I honestly, I am visual, but I don't have the data to get to the visual, in that regard.
Yeah, so to Casey's point, I think, so we have existing zoning in Saybrook, so there's already a lot of standards on setbacks, so we probably don't wanna veer too far off from those. Chris Costa could probably answer that in like a minute. Okay, yeah, it's gonna be this. But if you like, say the design standards in Guilford or Madison, if you like that, then we get their zoning regs and look, oh, what do they say? Oh yeah, we like that, but we don't need that. And that's your draft. And then I know Emily came off ARB.
Right.
Would be a good resource to take the draft and fine tune it.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should start with, which we don't have, and it's common, like in a lot of traditional zoning, there weren't a lot of building standards included. It was really more focused on like lot and bulk requirements, but in more recent years, depending on the specifics of the zone, sometimes you're allowed to do more with design standards and things like that. And there are also just is more of a, I guess, people pay more attention to, so you'll see it in more recent zoning. There's a certain level of building standards you can include in your zoning, even if you don't have full design standards. So like, I think it would be maybe good for us to start talking about the visual of the buildings first. I think that's probably the most important thing to us, like how big is the building? What are the treatments? Like where are the roof line divisions and things like that? How much, how many what do your windows have to be like and that sort of thing.
Scale.
And the scale, exactly. And then talking about where the building is on the lot and that sort of thing probably isn't as, that'll sort of settle itself depending on what type of development.
Just about, you sort of been holding like, the option to add another member. That perhaps if there was somebody with an architectural background or something like that.
Well, Emily does have an architecture background.
Oh, she does.
She is
That was a landscape.
she is an architect, whose license is lapsed, but she's studied and is doing architectural work, so.
Okay.
So she brings that to the table, so that's great.
So I think we have enough expertise on the commission to do it. I just don't know that like everybody, myself included, has that level of, the level of time
Right.
necessary to make that, to like do that work. So I'm certainly willing to like participate in that. I just don't wanna make promises that I can't,
Mhm.
or I don't wanna slow things down, too much, you know. But I could certainly, I think I could, especially if I talk to Emily, like well, I don't wanna volunteer her time. But I think we could at least, and maybe with like Doug too, I think we could at least get the conversation going.
Yeah, and there's consultants that can
Right.
pull it all together
Right.
and. You know, they look across all the towns and they would tell us if we were a serious outlier. I'm
Well,
trying to
and
think.
Doug, I like your idea. Let's, they talk about, Branford, Guilford, places like that. I'd rather look at those pallets than talk about industrial here in the town of Old Saybrook. Because if we're gonna go that route on this piece of real estate, I think we're going down the wrong road. Literally.
And I wanted to add, I think a big piece of this will be, and I've kind of said this before, the existing zoning in Old Saybrook. A lot of parking lot, a lot of pavement, a lot of parking for each separate business. We want to kind of dial that back a little bit, make it more pedestrian friendly. So I see that as a big issue. How does a business determine how many spots they need to have, or what's the shared parking look like?
Well, that was, Jennifer, that was out at the Whole Foods. Where they said they needed 400, but the town said you don't need that many. I mean, it's rare that that happens. Usually it's a developer
Right.
wanting less, but it should be all part of what fits. And again, in a development like this, in a master plan of a development like this, shared parking is a resource. Especially if we're trying to, Bruce, limit the number of curb cuts and things like that.
Right, right. Okay, so. Good news, bad news. Good news is. We're not gonna have formal meeting in 2 weeks because we're having the business property owners meeting. May I ask, AC, Doug, and I will volunteer, Emily, I have talked to her and she is interested in this. Maybe the three of you can kick this around about kind of from a process standpoint for this committee, what the right way to do it would be. And if at the end of that conversation, there's also, hey, we really need, either a staff person now or a staff person to pull it all together once we've done some of the preliminary work, whatever that is. That would be very helpful. And I think that would move this conversation forward more quickly than I could.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just had a presentation from Rivercog at a planning meeting. I saw you that night a week or two ago, and it was on, in planning, we read a plan of conservation and development every 10 years. And that's the vision. And then that's supposed to be translated into zoning changes to enable the vision.
Yeah.
So they talked about that. So I'll see if there's some nuggets I
Okay.
can pull out of that. It was training that they're doing all over as a result of a grant. So it was relatively good. So I know what you're looking for. I just don't know if they had like a nugget slide, but I have all the slides.
All right. Yeah, I always look for nugget slides. That sounds good.
Yeah, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there.
Amen. Okay, anything else for the good in order tonight? Any comments that any committee members would like to make? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
So-
moved.
Move.
Yeah, I hear many seconds.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Right?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.